And I believe we are live. Welcome, Thunderous. Welcome back. Great to have you here for today's conversation.
Hi, everybody, and hi to Lloyd. And I think tonight's going to be the conclusion of this material, is it not?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're back to discuss the Quran, the very confused Quran, the confused Quran Qira'at. Let me put my headphones on because I'm getting feedback from you again, Thunder. Somehow it's with you. I get that.
I'm not sure what's happening here.
And as soon as I figure out my headphones, plug this in. But there we go. Yeah, say hello. So, Thunderous 1. There's someone with the same name as you in the chat, Thunderous. That's weird. You know? I once went to an airport, I landed, and there was like a board that the guy had the name Lloyd doing, and I was thinking, wow, someone's waiting for a guy that has the same name as me. That's amazing. And then I went out to that and I took a bus to the hotel.
Well, I can assure you, Lloyd, I don't think there may be people with your name around the world, but there's no one as unique as you. And certainly in the sin narrative, you have a special place in the spin sin narrative.
Awesome. Thank you. So hello, Nina, Thunderous, Andrew Martin. Andrew, yeah, if you're open to it, you can come on, we can have a chat, talk about some of the stuff you've written. But think about it. And D. Mieleman, greetings from Holland. Yeah, so today I had a Muslim who argued with me. You may have noticed I've been publishing a number of these short videos discussing the Islamic connection to Nazism, how the Muslims actually had a critical role in even the creation of the Nazi party. They actually were fundamentally involved with the Nazi party. And I had a Muslim today tell me that I was wrong about a lot of historical facts. I mean, the guy was just literally making up myths. But he told me that the word Mu from Muslim comes from the continent of Mu, the lost land of Lemuria, which was a land that stretched from Hawaii to Australia or whatever it was, with tens of millions, 65 million people, and it sank under the waves, just like Atlantis. So that's where Mu comes from. Mu comes from, Muslim comes from these people who lived on this mythical continent. So yeah, there's no point even engaging with conversations with mythicists who are going to say dumb things like that. And of course, I've got someone else who's telling me that the Nazis were the good guys, so that's why they had to wipe out. I mean, people go, well, they didn't kill any Jews. Well, I live in Poland. The Poles are a little upset because the Nazis killed 20% of the Polish population. They killed millions of Poles. They tortured Poles. There was torture centers for white Poles who were not Jews. There were how many hundreds of thousands of disabled people that the Nazis killed because these were useless eaters, as we would have atheists call them today. So there were gypsies, there were Slavs that were murdered by the Nazis who weren't Jews because they weren't just killing Jews. So no, even can go, well, they can justify genocide of anything because the Nazis were the good guys. People like that are evil. People like that are misguided, and they should apologize to their mothers. And they're just easily deceived and ignored. Thunderous, over to you before I jump in.
No, I just want to thank you, Lloyd. There was a scripture that I had in mind. If you recall the conversation that we had last week about your role in the narrative, I'd just like to start tonight's meeting, if I may, with your permission, with a scripture that I thought might be something encouraging, not just to yourself, but encouraging to everybody that's listening in the audience as well. I'm just going to put it up. It's in the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to read from verse 26, if I may. So 1 Corinthians, chapter 1, and verse 26. And it's with reference to, I think I'll make the point at the end. I'll just read the scripture first. So it reads here, "For you see this calling, brothers, that not many are wise according to the flesh, not many are mighty, not many are noble. But God chose the foolish things of the world that he might put to shame those who are wise. God chose the weak things of the world that he might put to shame the things that are strong. And God chose the lowly ones of the world and the things that are despised and the things that are not, that he might bring to nothing the things that are that no flesh may boast before God. So the point I wanted to get my motive to bring this out is because within the genre of apologetics and polemics, there is an attitude and arrogance of academic achievement and academia. That is to say that if you haven't qualified in a particular educational field or strain of thought and got a degree or such, then you're not really in a position to have a comment. It's almost like an academic gatekeeping here. And sometimes people like yourself, Lloyd, can almost be put to the sidelines because you haven't got a qualification in any of the area that of this religious circle. And I just want to say that is not exactly scriptural. And the scriptures prove that as well. It's not about your academic achievement. It's about humility and presenting an argument that is based on facts. And I just thought in an encouraging way that you are an example of somebody that actually shows true humility. I've met you in person. You show true humility. You show that to the audience in the way that you engage with the audience. You show that certainly the discussion that you had the other night with Murad, there was a lot of humility shown on your part, and sincere humility, not feigned humility. And the way that you and I engage. And I want the audience to be encouraged by that. That don't be, if you like, put off by the fact that some people have doctorates in certain in educational fields. It's meaningless in the eyes of God. God uses the simple people, the little people. It's all about the arguments. And I just want to say, Lloyd, you're an exemplary demonstration of a person that brings forth the argument.
Well, breaking up a little bit there,
argument
Thunderous.
is based on fact. That's it.
Appreciate that.
That was it.
No, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, guys, let's dive into this Qira'at. I'm going to try and finish this today. Let's hope we can finish these slides. This was the last slide we had last time, right? These are called readers, but really these are editors of the Qur'an, right? We know of at least 42 variants, and even some of these variants have variants. So even the Hafs Quran, the most famous and most popular Quran, has at least 4 known variants. So this is definitely an issue. And by the way, I'll have Murad on again on Wednesday evening, 9 p.m. Poland time, which will be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 8 p.m. London time. All right. So I'll just run through this very briefly. So there were different variations of the Quran. As we all know, Abdullah ibn Masud, Ubay ibn Ka'b had their own Quran collections known as companion codices. Right. So for instance, Ibn Masud's version differed from what they call now the Uthmanic version, right, which reads, "And by the one who created male and female," while reports suggested Abdullah ibn Masud's Quran read, "by the male and female." This is not word for word, dot for dot, letter for letter, the same. Now, another early manuscript that does not derive from the Uthmanic version is, oddly enough, the Sunnah palimpsest. Now, of course, Muslims point to the Sunnah palimpsest as an early Quran. It's actually one of the variants. So therefore, it actually disproves the thesis that the Quran is unchanged, right? In 63:7, it reads that they disperse from around him, right? Which can also be found in various narrations, while the Uthmanic versions read that they disperse. Now, I haven't had a chance to dig deeply into the palimpsest in its differences, but this is just one simple difference, which at least disproves the claim of a completely unchanged single source Quran. Any comments on this before I go on?
No comment, but I am finding that the stream is breaking up and intermittent.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I'm experiencing the same as well. For the audience, are you also getting disruptions? Because I'm using StreamYard today, not using OBS. Yeah, I'm also getting feedback into my ear from you, Thunderous, but yeah. Okay, so for instance, here's another simple difference, Quran 2, 222. Thunderous is echoing. Thunderous, can you turn off your microphone for the moment? And then turn down your, turn down your gain, and then maybe turn down the volume as well. That's much better. Good grief. Wow, that's much better. Okay, so the Sunnah palimpsest: do not go to women during their menstruation until they are clean. Now, this may or may not imply sexual activity. Do not go to women. However, in the Abdullah ibn Masud, do not go to women during their menstruation and avoid sexual relations with them until they are clean. These are reasonably similar, right? But notice that they say, do not go to women during their menstruation and avoid sexual relations. So do not go to women has a different context to sexual relations. This one simply implies do not go to women, do not be in the company of women, do not visit women, do not be with women. Given this context here from the Abdullah ibn Masud, these are different. And the Uthmanic one is avoid sexual relations with women during menstruation and do not go to them until they are cleansed. So these are different. So the Sunnah palimpsest is apparently one of these companion codices, which is not one of the orthodox codices that was created by Uthman, right? However, the Sunnah palimpsest is not one that is known from the Muslim tradition. So it is actually potentially from one of the other lineages that was one of those that were burned by Uthman. Any thoughts, Thunderous, before I go on?
No, I was just thinking when you look at, say, the Sunnah palimpsest, it says don't go to women during their menstruation. It almost like it gives the impression that anyone reading that is don't go near women. Whereas the Ibn Masud version, he actually defines it down to a strict area of you can approach women, but not with reference to sexual relations with them. So though you can read this and infer the same thing from the palimpsest, that may not necessarily be true with a limited context. So it just kind of reminded me of what your discussion with Murad was about semantics and also synonyms and context when things presented that words mean things, but also what we discussed last week about where between the Qira'at and Yaruf, where people are writing things down that are in their own presupposition, but also within context of the community and the language that they're going to with the Islam Qira'at that they're going with. So it's almost like when you say 42 variations, and there could be even more than that, just bringing in what Murad had to say, sort of like it just expands it even further.
Yeah, excellent points. Yeah, so let us continue. All right, now the Hafs was not popular or common. That's a statement that we hear sometimes. Marijn van Putten says that many of the canonical 7 are remarkable for their complete absence. So that is very weird. Here you've got a scholar that, well, let's just say he's not always as forthcoming as we would like these academic scholars to be. He says that many of the canonical 7 Qira'at are remarkable for their complete absence in early manuscripts. The complete absence. So how did these 7 become the canonical Qira'at when they are completely absent from early vocalized manuscripts? And he says many readings that do not even get recorded in the literary sources are present in great numbers. So the variants that were considered unreliable are the ones that actually are in the greatest volume within the record, and the ones that are considered canon are actually completely absent. Isn't that an odd statement?
No, absolutely. And you know, it just seems that every time that something is said by Islam, that there are 5 angles in which to break it down. Yeah, interesting point.
Yeah, so let's continue with Marijn. So while the Hafs version is used by Muslims today, Dr. van Putten points out that occasionally one finds Suba and Asim, but as of yet, I have never seen a manuscript that contains Hafs. That reading was very unpopular. So how did Al-Ashar choose Hafs and make it the dominant Quran version on the planet today when he says, I have never seen a manuscript that contains Hafs? This is just, well, it's strange. This is strange. Makes one wonder if none of the 7 Qira'at are actually present in the historical record. As, yeah. Any thoughts, Thunderous, before I go on?
No, I'm actually experiencing intermittent.
You're breaking up again, Thunderous.
broadcast here, dude. So yeah, I'm going
Yeah, so you're breaking up again. The connection is not that great today. So I'll just continue. So Hafs was a specialist in the Quran, apparently. The official Egyptian Quran of 24 is not a critical edition based on early Quranic manuscripts. It relies on traditional ideas about the text and the Qira'at reading. Because there are no early manuscripts Muslims can turn to, therefore they could not go to an early manuscript like we can with the Bible to recreate the Quran. The scholars did not even try to reconstruct the original Quran and the most accurate text, but rather just selected Hafs for reasons that are just a head scratcher. The official Egyptian Quran of 24 does not rely on the evidence of early Quran manuscripts. Hafs learned the Quran from Asim Ibn Abi al-Najud, who was one of the 7 canonical readers. And we've just learned that the 7 canonical readers barely appear in any sort of historical record. And the chain of transmission of Hafs' recitation can be traced back to the Prophet Muhammad himself, apparently, making it a reliable and mutawatir mass-translated reading. However, we have seen, and we will see again as we go through, that there is every question about the Quran being mutawatir, because this is a very late development, something like the 14th, 15th century. So scholars prior to that did not believe that the Quran was mutawatir or 100% perfectly, absolutely reliable in its transmission. Ibn Ma'in, a prominent hadith scholar, commended Hafs for his Quranic recitation, despite criticism for his hadith narrations. Now, how can you be a fantastic memorizer of Quran verses, but somehow you are terrible, you're the worst guy in class for memorizing hadiths? Your memory works in Quran verses, but your memory doesn't work. It works for vegetables, but it doesn't work for fruits. It doesn't make sense. Other scholars like Al-Dahabi and Ibn Asakir also defended Hafs' reliability as a Quranic transmitter. Hafs, though, was not apparently as strong in hadith narration as he was in the Quran. Any comments, Thunderous? Let's hope your connection works now. Okay, I'll continue. You can jump in anytime, Thunderous. A few final points on Hafs. Thunderous, you're back. Any thoughts? You've just muted yourself again. Okay, a few final points on Hafs. The Cairo edition does not rely primarily on early Quran manuscripts, right, but on traditional ideas. We've already covered that. The committee responsible for the 1924 Quran consulted a tradition of documenting the orthography of the Quran, particularly a book called Al-Muqni by Abu Amr al-Dani, who describes Uthmanic orthography. Who is this guy that they now have to consult some random guy about the Quran? They then reconstructed the skeletal text based on al-Dani's descriptions. I thought they had early Qurans, and I thought they could just recite it from memory. As a result, the Cairo edition can be at odds with early manuscript evidence in its orthography. Okay, I thought it's preserved fully. Egypt's Islamic scholars chose the Kufan readings of Hafs. Why not the Meccan readings? Were the readings from Mecca? Likely because it was already popular at the time due to the Ottomans. So it's the Ottoman Quran, not the Uthman Quran, it's the Ottoman Quran, and is arguably easier to learn than other readings. Hey guys, we need an easy Bible. Let's simplify the Bible. Let's make a children's Bible and make that the official one. What they felt was the best reading from among the different Qira'at when translating or interpreting the Quran. Well, we know the Qira'at don't exist in the historical record, really, so what makes them valid Qira'at? Hafs is not the main readings, is not in the main readings. He was associated with one of the main readers. Is it the best readings? And why? So, if it's not one of the directly canonical readings. And Al-Shatibi later produced a versified version of Al-Muqni known as the Shatibiya in the 12th century. So now we're going back to the 11th, 12th century. So this is not even the 7th century, 8th century Quran. Thunderous, any thoughts from you, if you're back? Yeah, so okay, so Thunderous is having some broadcast issues. We'll just continue. So Protestant Believer says, my goodness. Yeah, I know. This is these are nails in a coffin. This in no way helps the Muslim case regarding the preservation and the reliability of the Quran. So the Quran in its historical context, edited by Gabriel Said Reynolds. Many of you will know him from his channel. on YouTube. Ibn Mujahid argued that there are 7 equally valid Qira'at. Others argued for 10 or 14. Now we know there are 42 at least. Okay, and there's the caveat that each Qira'at has 2 versions. So every one of the Qira'at readers has 2 transmitters. We know from Murad that these aren't transmitters, these are narrators, paraphrasers. 14 different versions were considered equally authentic, only one of which was Hafs and Asim. There is no unanimity over the precise shape of the Hafs and Asim Qira'at. In other words, we still don't even know exactly. There are 4 different lines of transmission that are claimed for Hafs. 4 disagreeing versions of Hafs. And discrepancies abound in the various texts claiming to transmit the Hafs. In the early 20th century, therefore, the shape of the Quran would have been anything but clear. The Cairo Quran edition, due to the variations or errors, is actually stated as an appendix to the Cairo Quran edition. So in other words, there's an appendix in the Cairo Quran edition of 1924 that says the Cairo Quran edition, right, had variations or errors in the Quran. And that's in the most trusted Quran used today. So I'm going to restart your laptop. Excellent, Thunderous. So Protestant believer. Okay, great. Okay, let's see. So in response, the government destroyed a large number of such texts by sinking them in the Nile River and issued its own text. The Cairo project thus followed in the spirit of the Caliph Uthman and the governor Al-Hajjaj bin Yusuf from 714, who are reported to have destroyed competing versions of the Quran and distributed their own text of the Quran in the first Islamic century. That's Gabriel Said Reynolds, and of course they cannot even prove that the Uthmani Quran is the original early Quran. So when the scholars in Cairo decided to fix a standard text according to Hafs, they still had to decide which reports of it to trust. The Cairo text is often at odds with manuscript evidence. So Muslims are vainly trying to imply that they have texts, they have manuscripts. That's why they laugh at biblical manuscripts, because they have to undermine and deny the fact that textual evidence is very important when they've got nothing. So this is to be expected, given that the Cairo project was not about recovering a text as much as choosing a text. The Qira'at is based on religious doctrine, a political agenda, not textual criticism, because they don't have any text to draw upon. The Egyptian edition's claim to validity is based not on antiquity, but on canonicity, popularity, in other words. It's not based on any kind of reliable, authentic documents they can go back to. And the Qira'at themselves have no basis in history. So yeah, hopefully you'll see this is very damning towards this claim about the Quran being preserved. Concerns al-Muqni by Abu Amr al-Dani. So the al-Muqni has reliance on traditional sources over early manuscripts. The al-Muqni does not rely on early manuscripts. It relies on traditions, in other words, opinions, preferences. And of course, we know there were multiple versions of the Quran by different people with different religious preferences, right? So you have discrepancies between the Cairo edition and early Quran manuscript evidence in terms of orthography. Choosing the Hafs reasons. The decision was based on tradition, not manuscripts. Don't they trust the early Quran manuscripts? And the point is that no, they do not. Lack of diversity in the standardized text. The process of standardizing the Quran's text and reading in the Cairo edition did not reflect the diversity of readings that existed in early manuscripts. So there was always diversity in early manuscripts. The doctrines of the 7 Akhruf and 10 authentic Qira'at are attempts to harmonize and justify the many variants that existed in early manuscripts. And of course, you have the influence on modern Quran printings. This book, Al-Muqni, has been influential in the modern printing of Qurans, following the Uthmanic Razm, right? It's influenced India, Pakistan, Libya, Indonesia, right? Any issues with Al-Muqni are propagated in these widely used Quran editions. So we already know that today we still have multiple variant, conflicting versions of the Quran. Right, I'll just skip over that. Now, you know that I've covered this before, but for those who don't know, the word harf or akhruf, right, is a letter of the alphabet. Muslims always tell us that. It's a Quranic reading, it's a dialect, that's fine. But the Encyclopedia of Islam also tells us that the longer, most complete definition is the ilm al-khuruf, onomatomancy, a magical practice based on the occult properties of the letters of the alphabet and of the divine and angelic names which they form. So there's also use of the ahruf for occult magic. Bear that in mind. Right, that's why they can't correctly define the ahruf, because it's something they don't want us to investigate very deeply. Now, the ahruf and Qira'at are related but distinct concepts in the study of the Quran. The ahruf, singular harf, refers to different modes or styles of recitation of the Quran, supposedly approved by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So according to authentic hadiths, the Quran was revealed in 7 ahruf, or modes or dialects. Of course, there is no reason why these particular dialects were chosen, or that they even are genuine reasons. The 7 ahruf allowed variations in certain aspects, like differences in vowel sounds: tomato, tomato, potato, potato. Except we know that it's tomato and carrot, which are 2 different things. That's not a dialectical difference. That's a completely different thing. She versus him. Those are not dialectical differences. That's male versus female. That's a contradiction. Variations in verb forms: singular versus plural, masculine versus feminine. There are additions or omissions or substitutions of words. There are differences in word order. So the meaning, at least as they argue with us, remains the same across all the ahruf. And after the time of Muhammad, the ahruf were reduced to the dialect of the Quraysh tribe to ensure uniformity. That's the common claim. Is it true? Well, no, we've been discovering it's not quite true. Now, the Qira'at refers to the canonical readings of the Quran, transmitted through supposedly reliable chains of narrators and compiled in the 4th century AH. And the 7 most famous Qira'at codified by Ibn Mujahid. And then 3 additional ones, and then 4 more, and then each one of those had 2 transmitters for a total of 42. And of course, Hafs is not just 1 transmission, it's actually 4, which gives us from 42 and now it's 45. And then of course, it just goes on from there. So there's evidence from some source that Samo used black magic to convey people, and that's why they're talking stones and trees. It's probably not as far-fetched as you would think. I'd say there's probably more to it than we realize. And yes, Conatendo al-Islam, it's tomatoes versus mangoes. Exactly, it's not tomato, tomato. It's, yeah. The Qira'at incorporated some of the variations allowed in the ahruf, but only those that conform to the razm, like the consonantal outline, minus the vowels. So while the ahruf were broader modes, the Qira'at are more standardized readings transmitted through supposedly unknown, largely reliable narrators. All right. So we have the preservation of perfect contradictions. So you have the existence of multiple Qira'at readings of the Quran, including the well-known Hafs and Warsh versions. And this is a contradiction to the claim of perfect preservation of a single text. Right? Now, different Qira'at, with its own variations in pronunciation, word choice, and sometimes even in the number of verses, raises questions that we have to ask. These are important questions. What was the original text of the Quran? And they don't know what that is. So the concept of perfect preservation is redefined within Islamic apologetics to mean that the core message and the teachings have been preserved without alteration. But that is a completely new claim. So that is them backpedaling and choosing a new position. And then, of course, tomorrow, they'll just make the old lie over again until we push them back. And then that's just how that goes in circles. Okay, let's look at a couple of examples of contradictions. I'm using here the Bridges Quran translation, right? Please have a look in the description. Go to my Google folder, go to the archive, find yourself a copy of the Bridges translation of the Quran. This is page 234, Surah 24, An-Nur, him or her. Different recitations result in conflicting translations. For instance, may Allah's curse be upon him, and may Allah's anger be upon her. That's both the same verse. So, Qira'at by Nafi and Yaqub say, may Allah's curse be upon him. The majority of the recitations, except Nafi, Yaqub, and Hafs, say liars, and the 5th is, may Allah's wrath be upon her. May Allah curse him, may Allah's wrath be upon her. I'd say that's slightly different. The one is a curse, the one is anger. The curse is not the same as anger. And him is not the same as her, unless you live in San Francisco, of course, or Los Angeles. However, in Islam, I'm pretty sure that they have a distinct difference between him and her. So yeah, Allah seems a little bit confused here. Man or woman? Yeah, it's not possible to tell because we'll need a biologist to explain that to us according to US Supreme Court judges. Nafi's reading, lies, and the fifth is that Allah's wrath will have fallen upon her. Will have fallen, will be, indeed be upon. So, yeah, these are not the same. Will have fallen, looking back, right? This is future past, right? Will have fallen. Will indeed be upon. This is not the same. May Allah's wrath be upon her. So this alters the understanding of the verse and the interpretation of the relationship between the individuals being referred to, right? Islam, right, is based on Arabic. Arabic has gender-specific pronouns and verb forms. So this gender will lead to distinct interpretations because Islam has very clear words for male and female. There's no, so yeah, but these are actual Quran versions that are supposed to be valid Qira'at that have him versus her, male versus female. These are very different. These have significant differences and they have theological implications. So the discrepancy between him and her changes the gender identification, but also the identity of the person upon whom Allah's curse or wrath. And we still haven't defined whether it's the curse or anger. Yes, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. This is, yeah. How does abrogation fit in this narrative? Who knows? I mean, that's a question that Muslims could answer for us. You saw they came on earlier and were wailing about, you know, like making comments about Jews in the Wailing Wall because they don't know how to answer this. They can't, so they've got to try to change the subject. Yeah. So let's look at, right? So the consequences is you have that you are confused about the identity of the accursed individual, right? Him in one recitation versus her in another Qira'at. Who is the person? And is the curse or is it wrath? It will be invoked. It was invoked. It did happen in the past. It will definitely happen, or it hasn't happened yet, but we think it's going to happen. Just who's responsible? Who's to blame? Who? Yeah. Divine consequences and punishments. Well, does it? Doesn't it? Does it to men, to female, to him, her? Who did what? It's confusing as hell. Judgment and justice. So who's intended, man or woman? So we have two different individuals. Who do we blame? This is Quranic clarity, right? So yeah, I think you get the point. I don't have to belabor that. We'll have fallen future perfect tense according to Sheikh Google. Thank you very much. Yeah, future perfect. Yeah, versus past tense versus. It's just yeah, none of this makes sense. This is not dialectical differences. Tomato, right? These aren't accents. These are contradictions. Let's look at Surah 13, Arad, the thunder, page 168 in the Bridges Quran. Rather, the scheming of those who have denied has been adorned for them, and they were barred from the way. They were stopped from going, right? They were prevented from traveling further. They were barred from the way. And in Nafi, Ibn Kathir, Abu Amr, Ibn Amir, and Abu Jafar, they write it as, and they barred others from the way. So they stopped other people from going. So they were stopped from going, or they stopped other people. Which is it? Which version of the Quran is the correct one? Which one is the one Allah sent down? Which one is the one Allah has in heaven? Well, we don't know. So yeah, understand the confusion. Muslims are not honest with themselves. They're not honest with you. And Thunderous has come back. Welcome back, Thunderous. So yeah, understand the confusion. Muslims. You want to stop now? So Thunderous, any comments? Okay, let me just.
No comments so far. Just concentrating on trying to get back onto the stream. Sorry.
Okay, welcome back. So yeah, so Muslims can't get their story straight, and of course their propaganda is very good. Do not underestimate the effectiveness of their propaganda. So we need to fight back with knowledge against them. All right, and Murad has it intercept like a soccer goalie. Yeah. So yes. So now, which version of the Quran among the 10 or 14 or 42 or 45 or whatever corresponds to the one in paradise as received by Muhammad? Well, fact is, nobody knows. They can't even know. They can't even tell you if in that verse it's him or her, male or female, this woman or that man. If they can't even tell you that, like what? You know? Islamic scholars and theologians argue that all approved Qira'at are authentic and divinely sanctioned versions or variations of the same divine message. Well, he's going to hell, she's going to hell. Which one is it? Punish him, punish her. That's not exactly the same. From this viewpoint, the version in paradise is not tied to a specific textual rendering, apparently, but to the eternal and uncreated essence of the Quran's message. Yeah. Sure. Each Qira'at is seen as a valid expression of this divine message. So, in other words, it's feelings, it's how you feel about the Quran. You feel its essence and it speaks to you, and the Holy Spirit just guides you, and you just say the words as you feel that's right for you. Yeah, right. Anyway, so this accommodates the linguistic and cultural diversity of the Muslim community. That's so sweet. This is amazing. So the factual existence of multiple Qira'at with documented variations in wording and meaning tells us the Quranic text has experienced changes in transmission. It has been edited, and it has changed from place to place. And this evidence contradicts claims of a singular, perfectly preserved text that is unchanged since Revelation, because they cannot prove that to you. Thunderous, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just think that, first of all, when you read it, I'm having intermittent issues yet again, but my first summary of thought was that the very same thing that they try and say about the Bible is actually an internal problem that they're having with their own holy book, as it were, in their recension. It talks about in the last bullet point that you raised there that Christ experience changes in transmission and recitation over time. Then talking about the culture and the community, but that implies that there are only 7 or 10 cultures and communities that it appeals to. Where if it's a universal book, then culture and community would be an irrelevance. It has to be universal and incorporate all community, not just 7 or 10 communities. So I find that very hard to believe. When you look at the Bible, if you go to Isaiah chapter verses 2 to 4, it talks about in the final part of the days, and this message will be to all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. Matthew 24:14. This good news will be preached in all inhabitants for a witness to all the nations. Then if you go to Revelation 7, it talks about these are the people that come out of the Great Tribulation, out of all the nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. Yet again, we find a unified message, one message, no matter what the language, no matter what the nation. But the Quran seems to be implying with Muslims that there are 7 or 10 cultures that this book will appeal to. That doesn't make it sound universal in my eyes.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So, Khmil, whoever that is, that's very polite. Different mice. He needs you to have a better mice, Thunderous. He has a problem with your mice. And, yeah. Welcome, Prega Raja. Good to see you from South Africa.
I think it's more to do with it's more to do with StreamYard, because we don't have this issue with Skype.
Yeah, true. Must be StreamYard having a problem. Yeah, mice means microphone. Mice. Yeah, try mic minus the E, but not the most. Yeah, this guy's a real genius. Yeah, this guy is a fantastic speller, total genius, definitely top notch. Let's anyway, thank you for playing. You can come back in a while. I'll yeah. So anyway, he's here to vent his spleen, obviously. Okay, right. So we now have obvious, copious contradictions, right? There is no unchanged text. There is no fully preserved Quran. There's a confusion as to what is even the original Quran. We have direct evidence of contradictions. Welcome, DMEC and T. Roney, right? The Hafs and Wash readings exhibited clear textual differences. I've shown you already some obvious differences, right? Not just between Hafs and Wash. I've shown you for within the 7 Qira'at, within the 10 Qira'at, there are obvious differences. Him and her, right? This is penis, this is vagina, if you want to put it that way. Those are 2 different things, unless you live in California, right? So, for instance, Quran 2:125 in Hafs reads, Watakizu, you shall take, whereas Wash reads, Watakazu, they have taken. These are different contexts. You shall take, you have taken, right? The one could be an accusation, and the other one could be an insinuation. Those are 2 different things. The one could have legal implications. You stole that. you will steal that. Well, that's an assertion, that's an assumption. But you have taken, well, that's an accusation. Those are completely, your thoughts on that, Thunderous, with us here. Okay, if you can't come in, that's great. So, historical compilation. So the process of compiling the Quran after Muhammad's death involved gathering oral recitations and written fragments, right? And then you had differences in reading. So now let's have a look. Even the Hadiths. So we're nearly done. I think we've got 4 more slides to go, then we'll be done. Right, now the Hadiths are affected as well. 4 more slides or 6 more slides? So Hadiths are affected too. It is not just the Quran. Right? Selections from the Fath al-Bari by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. This is a very important book in Islam. This is the major interpreter. This is effectively the tafsir of all of the hadiths of Bukhari. Right? So this is the major scholar that interpreted Bukhari's hadiths. So at least 70 full commentaries have been written on Imam al-Bukhari's great Sahih. The most celebrated is without question the magnificent Fath al-Bari, Victory of the Creator, by Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. It is appreciated by the ulama for the doctrinal soundness of its author, for its complete coverage and its mastery of the relevant Arabic sciences, and its skill in resolving complex disputes over variant readings. Bukhari's text has not come down to us, though, in a single uniform version, but Sahih Bukhari exists in several narrations. The version handed down by al-Kushmehani, who died in the year 389 in the Islamic calendar, on the authority of Bukhari's pupil, al-Farabri. Now notice, this is nearly 400 years after Muhammad, right, after the Hijrah, right, 620, so that's nearly 400 years later. On the authority of Bukhari's pupil, al-Farabri is the one most frequently accepted by the ulama. This is the version. Now, there's a lot more to be said. There are a lot more problems with Bukhari that you may not be aware of. There's a heck of a lot more going on with Bukhari that makes it completely unreliable, but that's a discussion for another time. But Ibn Hajar frequently uses the al-Kushmehani variant. He gives his reasons, often in complex detail, for preferring other readings where these seem to have particular merit. He makes it clear that he is authorized through the ijazah system for all the riwayat or narrations that he cites. So even Bukhari has multiple variants, multiple versions. There are other problems as well, right? Significant issues with Bukhari, but the Qira'at problem does not just affect the Quran, it also affects the major, most important hadiths. Yes, as Andrew Mark says, there are similar problems with the hadith collections. There are severe problems with the hadith collections too. So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so unfortunately, Thunderous, was having too many issues. So, Lloyd, 10 Qira'ats, does that mean the angel Jibberish came down 10 times for each ayat? Of course. That's, he loved coming to Earth. That's what he did, right? So, yeah, okay, moving on. The Fath al-Bari, right? Just so we know, so that Muslim lay people and apologists, when they argue with us, this is a collaboration. You can find this easily online. Tafsir Sahih Bukhari, the Fath al-Bari, right? You can find this easily. Here's a link, but you can Google it. You will find it. It is also in my archive. Just look up Fath al-Bari, right? This is a collaboration between Al-Azhar, who created the 1924 Hafs Quran, which is the most popular Quran on the planet, as well as Medina University, the university in the city where the Prophet died, the city of the Prophet. And it says here, removing weak hadith from works was not the example of the scholars. And I'm going to answer this question for Cliffy Pillay, which hadiths are strong and weak. We're going to answer that now. Removing weak hadith from works was not the example of the scholars. Otherwise, Imam Ibn Hajar would not have included them himself in the Fath al-Bari as sources of knowledge. Weak hadith are used to support opinions because a weak hadith containing the words of the Prophet is preferred over pure opinion and personal reasoning. And this is the example set by all the scholars, including Imam Bukhari himself, who used weak hadiths deliberately in his work Al-Adab al-Mufrad. I know that we all only know about the Sahih Bukhari, but he actually wrote other compilations of hadiths as well, like this one, Adab al-Mufrad, which actually compiled weak hadith as well. So the Sahih of Imam Bukhari is a collection of the Sahih Hadith specifically. It is not a collection of the only Hadith that scholars should use. And the Muslim scholars themselves state a Sahih Hadith has about a 99 to a 100% chance of being entirely accurate. Hassan Hadith has an 85 to 99% chance of being entirely accurate. A Da'if Hadith has a 45 to 85% chance of being entirely accurate. Even a fabricated Hadith has a 45% chance of being accurate, since the grading it was given may have been wrong, or the fabricator may have spoken the truth in this instance. In other words, they can't be sure, therefore they cannot reject it. So weak Hadith should not be treated like fabricated Hadith, because an 85% chance of being entirely accurate is a very high chance. So yeah, a weak Hadith has a very high chance of being 100% accurate, according to Muslims. It has an 85% chance of being totally correct. If a person received 85% on his test scores, would he throw that out saying that isn't worth anything? So even a weak Hadith can have an 85% score for accuracy. So there you go, just so you know, so Muslims don't lie to you. So according to Al-Hafiz Abu Yala Al-Khalili, died 446 AH. Remember, this is 446 years after 620. In his Al-Irshad Marifa Ulama Al-Hadith, right, the last person to transmit the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari directly from him was his prominent student known as Imam al-Farabri. The well-known and reliable Hadith scholar, or Muhadith, an expert on the praise and dispraise of narrators known as Al-Hafiz Abu Ahmad ibn Abi, was also one of those who narrated directly from Imam al-Farabri. Right? In recent days, some unrecognized Hadith critics may have raised the notion with an ulterior motive to demean the status of Sahih Bukhari by propositioning the theory that the most well-known transmitter of Sahih Bukhari, right, Farabri, was not accredited to be reliable by any contemporary living scholar in his lifetime, thus designating him to be a type of unknown narrator in terms of truthfulness. Such claimants have anticipated that this tawhiq or reliability was made much later on without reference to any early source to support such a claim. So now you've got scholars that are saying that, hold on, but the claim that this transmitter of Bukhari is claimed to be reliable, that's a much later claim. And exactly the same is stated about the Quran, that the claim that the Quran was reliably transmitted is a claim that came roughly 600 to 700 years after the Quran was supposedly completed. So the claim of reliable transmission of the Quran is a claim that comes hundreds of years later. It was not accepted by any scholars prior to about the 13th century or 14th century. So yeah, just so you know, I'm going to skip over this because I don't want to talk too much about this. Let me see, I've got a couple of slides. Okay, there we go. So nearly done. Final conclusions, right? In your estimation, Lloyd, how many hands have been on the Quran? How many? That's, man, you have to think about it. I mean, you've got at least, we can count at least 45 versions of the Quran that are known, and that is just 45 variants of the 7 Qira'at, right? 45 variants of the 7, of the 14. So you have the 7 plus the 3 plus the 4, right? So then you have to have, for every one transmitter, for every one reader, sorry, you have to have 2 transmitters. But then we know for Hafs, you've got at least 4 versions. So you've got 45 versions. Then you've got dozens of other versions that were known, that are well known, that are attested within the historical record. So that means there were hundreds of versions of the Quran. So yeah, it's just insane. Would you agree that a Muslim scholar is in a corner and a Christian referred to a particular hadith? Muslim scholar quickly said it's a weak hadith. Yes, yes, of course. They will always say that. They always do that, right? So yeah. So understand, where are the scholars? Why are the scholars not coming to prove their case and blow everyone away at Speaker's Corner? Why are the scholars not coming onto YouTube discussions? Why are the scholars not coming on YouTube debates? Because we are getting so good at knowing the stuff that they are backed into corners. They are just taken apart. Right, so let's have a look at this. So final conclusions, last couple of slides, last 2 slides. So the effort by Caliph Uthman to standardize the Quranic text acknowledges the existence of variations, aiming to unify the Muslim community under one text. However, the persistence of multiple Qira'at indicates that variations remained even after the standardization. This is taken from the Quran for Dummies by Sohaib Sultan. So yes, variations remained. The scholars are just excusing Islam. Yeah, exactly. They know they can't read. They'll be killed. We know how that goes. How many vetted the Quran? I mean, do they even know who wrote the Quranic chapters? They don't. Supposedly collected by one guy, but yeah. So next, canonical acceptance of multiple readings. The Islamic tradition recognizes the legitimacy of multiple versions. Don't be fooled. Qira'at, readings, versions. These are different versions, each with its own chain of transmission. This acknowledgement within Islamic scholarship of various supposedly authentic readings contradicts the notion of a single perfectly preserved text. Is there perfect preservation? The documented textual differences between the Qira'at, such as Hafs and Warsh, give us concrete evidence. The Quranic text has gone through changes, and the story of perfect preservation is a lie. It's just a lie. It is not true. They cannot back it up. Now, going back to the Bridges Quran, for instance, okay, this is part 11. So this is Surah 10, Yunus, okay, Jonah. This is Jonah, you know the story of Jonah. Of course, he becomes Yunus. And here you've got, now, the Arabic word used in the Quran means recital or recitation. Al-Bazi is one of his narrations, reads as, he would have informed you about it through someone else, right? Now, notice it says here, had Allah willed, I would not have read it to you, and he would not have informed you about it. Had Allah willed, I would not have told you, right? And you would not have known about it. Notice Al-Bazi in one of his narrations, that's one of the Qira'at, says, he would have informed you about it. He would not have told you. He would have informed you. He would not have informed you. He would have told you. Are those the same things? Allah would have told you. Allah would not have told you. Those are not is a negation. It is a contradiction. It is the opposite. I am here. I am not here. I will tell you. I will not tell you. He will tell you. He will not tell you. This is a direct contradiction. The Quran is supposed to have no contradictions. Well, if this is a valid version of the Quran, it has a contradiction. It contradicts another supposedly valid Quran. He would have informed you. He would not have informed you. He would have informed you. I think you get the point. Okay? That's just how that is. This is totally. You should only go by the Gutenberg. The mic is a bit off today. Okay. So, is it possible that those who wrote the Quran changed what Muhammad said, seeing he was uneducated, not able to read? Yeah, very probable. Very possible. So, yeah, I'm not sure if the mic is off, but yeah. I've seen Muslims appearing to the original English. Good grief. And then they'll tell you the English versions are all wrong. You can only read it in Arabic. Incredible. Yes, and Arabic is the first language. It has turned out to be the worst language, but also the early Arabic was an incomplete language. Didn't have vowels, didn't have dots. So you couldn't tell the differences between words. I mean, so, yeah. Why do they use the isnads over parchments found? Exactly, because they don't have parchments. Yeah. And that's also true just to boy J, of course. Yeah. Okay, so let us finish. So basically we're done here. Okay, so guys, that is it. That actually is the end. So the next thing I will do, I'm working on this. These are just some rough notes, and there are people who dropped comments which are very helpful, so I've taken those comments, and I will be working through these. But in the next thing, I'll be looking at the very first chapter of the Quran, okay, the Surah Al-Fatiha. So at some point, I will look at the very, which is only, I think, 7 or 10 lines, the Surah Al-Fatiha. There's a problem with that too. So we can actually take just that initial opening chapter of the Quran and go like, here, you have some problems. So yeah. Yeah, most Muslims don't know Arabic. Most Muslims in the world don't know Arabic. About 85% of Muslims worldwide don't speak any Arabic. They don't actually know. They can maybe memorize some of it and recite it because it rhymes very beautifully, apparently. But they don't understand a word of what's in there. And Arnold Nathaniel, thank you for the detailed research, Lloyd and Thunderous. You're very welcome. Yeah, so yeah, Nina, I'm glad you found that entertaining. But yeah, that's just what happened to Daniel Brubeck of Variant Quran. I think he said everything he needed to say. I mean, yeah, also scholars tend not to be very blunt about their statements, but hopefully, yeah, he made his point. There are huge variants in the Quran. I think he's made the academic point. Yeah, so guys, have a look when you have a moment at the recent videos. I put out several videos in the last 2 weeks on the Nazis and Islam. The Muslims, especially the Palestinians, were committed Nazis. They were allies of the Nazis. They signed agreements with the Nazis. They agreed to go to war for the Nazis. They raised troops for the Nazis. They killed Jews for the Nazis. They murdered people for the Nazis. Yeah, and of course you're going to have people saying, well, you know, actually millions of Muslims fought for the Allies. Like, no. But yeah, look, in Islam, remember, it is compulsory, obligatory, that Muslims must lie. That's in the Sharia. So yeah, my neighbors hate me for exposing their lies. Yeah, dude, that's a hard thing to do. So yeah, guys, that's it from me. We've just done 55 minutes and 40 seconds. So hopefully, so this finishes that. I've got some raw notes in there because I was working slowly on exposing exactly the same problems in the Hadiths. The problems are possibly even worse in the Hadiths, right? There might even be there are some serious problems within the Hadiths as well. Those are not reliable either. So yeah, why do gay people side with them? But yeah, you have to wonder. So yeah, guys, that's it from me. And of course, if you like the material, please like it, share it, subscribe. Thank you again to those who do support the channel. And yeah, do follow me on Twitter, right? It's my name, Lloyd de Jong, as one word. And yeah, that's it from me for tonight. I will be back on Wednesday at the very latest. Tomorrow I cannot stream. I've got family staying over. It's family visiting. So they'll be staying here. At least one person will be sleeping here. So guys, that's it from me. Thank you, Thunderous. Sorry about all of the technical difficulties. You're very welcome, DMEC. I'm glad it helps. So guys, yeah, expert level semantics, Muslims play always backfire when we break down the actual Arabic the way Sam or Christian Prince does. We did so with Murad. Look at the show I did on Wednesday, and I've got the one coming up on Wednesday. But look at my show with Murad. We deconstructed the Quran. He's actually translating the Quran from scratch with the Hafs version, and it's laughable. It's just a joke. Yes, they burned a guy for a tourist for disrespecting the Quran. That's what they're doing in Pakistan. Yeah. So thank you, Qonfusion. Yeah, if you guys want to translate the material, by all means do so. So guys, that's it from me. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Hope you learned a great deal. Use this information, and I will see you guys shortly. Take care.